Okay, so I want to try to show you how to draw some paper airplanes, and we are going to fold actual paper airplanes in class to draw, and we're going to practice drawing them simple, where you just have one sitting right in front of you, draw just what you see, and then we're going to make the compositions more interesting by beginning to overlap them, and then we're going to work on foreshortening and having them come right at us so they're getting larger or smaller depending on how we angle them. So I wanted to show you first how to break it down. I'm going to try to put this here so you can see it. Actually, I'm going to do this instead, because I think from the video standpoint this will make it easier for you to see the shapes I'm talking about. So lots of times it's hard to draw because your brain gets overwhelmed with all of the stuff that you're seeing at one time. So the nice thing about a paper airplane is there's all these little triangular shapes and angles, and that makes it easier for our brain to compute and start drawing the pieces. So I'm going to start by drawing this shape right here as one big triangle. So I'm just sketching out that line right there. And it's a little bent and wonky down here, but I'm going to ignore that for now. And I'm drawing that bottom line coming back. Now I can clearly see that this angle here keeps going, and then it angles out and kind of comes back. So I'm going to go past this line. I'm going to angle up a little bit, just like I see there, and then I'm going to connect back over here. So now, it started out as a pretty simple triangle right here, and then I got a little wonky on the end to make that shape. Now I see a clear triangle right here, and it connects from that first line that I drew. So I'm going to connect up, continue that line, and then looking at this line here, this ends about a little over halfway. So I'm going to come a little over halfway, and I'm going to finish that triangle off. So now I've got half my airplane drawn. I'm moving right along. So now I have another shape, and it ends just about here. So it's another straight line, and then it starts to angle down. So I'm gonna start to angle down, and then there's an angle right here. So notice I'm not really calling things shapes other than the triangles that I see. I'm just saying, here's an angle, here's a line. I'm trying to simplify it as much as I can for my brain so that my brain will allow me to draw it as realistically as possible. So now I'm going to draw this line right here that I see coming down. And now I can start to put in some finer points. So like here where it bends a little bit, I can start to refine that line and put that bend in there. And where I see that little curve, I can curve back. Where I've got that curve, I can curve in. Where it's kind of angled up there, I have to clean up my lines a little bit. I draw very sketchy. Now I can start to make that point. So now it starts to look a lot like this airplane. It may not be perfect, but this contour drawing gives me a starting point. So now I can go in and add details, I can draw shadows, I can make it look more realistic. Now, when you're doing something a little bit harder, where perhaps you have two airplanes crossing over, then you want to focus on one airplane at a time, one object at a time, and start drawing it. So if I was drawing this, I would start with this nice little V shape right here. Let me, hold on, move my paper. I'm gonna tape it down so I wouldn't lose it while drawing. Okay, so I'm gonna draw this image right here. So like I said, I'm gonna start with this shape right here. So I'm gonna draw that little V that's right in the middle. And then that V connects down, and that bounces back up like a nice little triangle right there. So now I'm gonna draw my angle down, come back to that V, and finish out that triangle that I see. So I've got this shape roughed out right there. Now there's a little triangle baby right here, and then another almost triangle right here. So I'm gonna drop in that little triangle that I saw right there on the top, and that tells me where to put this side of my airplane, and I can start to bring it in. And again, I'm not worrying about this little angle and everything right here. I'm just laying out some basic lines. So now I can do this part right here, and see this line that hits here? I'm gonna draw that in. So I've got my little top right here, and then I see this line breaking into the plane, and then from there, this line comes back in to hug the center. So that line comes down, I draw the top line, and the nice thing about an airplane is everything's converging at the tip, so I can clearly see that my lines need to angle in towards that center. It just helps to think about all the little lines that you see. See them as lines, see them as angles, see them as simple shapes, and as you do that, it will get easier to draw all these pieces out, because I haven't been drawing for very long, and I've already got one airplane drawn. And I'm talking while I do it, which is using both sides of my brain, which is super hard. The left and the right don't always want to work together. But you can see I'm drawing really lightly, very sketchy. I'm not trying to get all of the angles laid out in just the right spots. I'm kind of eyeballing it. So now I have most of these airplanes drawn. Move them up there so you can see it. So now I can go back to my reference photo or set up my airplane still life, which is how you guys will be drawing it in class, and I can start to fine tune those edges based on what I see, and then I can start to add the values. So start with simple shapes, start with lines, and that is the easiest way to draw.